So, anyways, good morning, everybody. Mike Wright, Edge Home Finance. We appreciate you all being here today. Happy Wednesday. And I'm super excited to have a great friend of mine who I've known a lot of years. But now this is more on the real estate front. AJ Pettersen of the Advisory Realty Group, powered by eXp Realty.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, I'm super excited, my friend.
It's be fun.
It's great to be able to pick your brain, find out what has made you truly a rock star in the real estate world. I know you obviously from the baseball arena, which we'll touch base a little bit on, but tell us a little bit about, obviously thank you for being the Realtor of the Week. You are, truly why we do this thing.
Yeah.
Because it gives the ability, we got over 900 people in our Realtor Connect group. They all want to figure out what makes those people successful. And you're the epitome of it. Even though you don't like to be in the limelight, you're the brains behind the operation, brother. So thank you very much for coming.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your family and kids and all that other chaos you got going on top of work.
Yeah. So me and my wife have now been married for 11 years. It was our anniversary on last week, which was pretty fun. We have 3 kids. Holden is 7, Brody's 5, Daphne's 2, which is crazy. Yeah, back in school now, which is nice. I got done playing baseball, which I don't know if you have that in here or not. But okay, so I got done playing baseball, and we actually bought our first house in St. Louis Park, and since about 5 years ago, we moved to the same street I grew up on.
Oh, wow.
Emily from Lino Lakes.
Okay.
So I convinced her to move down here. But we've been around the west side for quite a while.
And you love
doing
it.
Our thing. Yeah, I love it.
It's your community. And I think that the cool thing about your team, which we'll elaborate on, is you've got friends, you got former baseball players, you got family that you've tied into your success in your business, which I appreciate a ton. So tell me, AJ has a ton of experience, obviously at the U of M, Ski-U-Mah, and the Minnesota Twins, but then also coached, had the pleasure of coaching, I don't know if it's pleasure or not, but coaching at Chanhassen High School.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think of that?
That was great. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely an experience. Everybody always say I played professional baseball. And they're like, wow, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, it was something. It was really hard, But college baseball, I would do that definitely all over again. It was extremely enjoyable and a lot more comfortable than professional baseball maybe was. But I think I learned, not just through playing the game, but from some of my key coaches, a lot of skills that have been super applicable in real estate.
Is there a similarity? I mean, we'll talk about your team in a little bit, but I mean, you still are the ringleader. You're the skipper, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's some similarities. I think that managing stress and emotions, baseball really teaches you a lot about that. And it's different now, and I tell what I tell people who get into real estate after being an athlete is sports give you a burst of stress that you have to deal with immediately, but then the game ends and it's over, right? You might be like bummed out, but you're no longer like anxious and stressed about it because it already happened. Real estate it's always a little bit less stress, but it's always happening, right?
Constant, yeah.
But the beauty of that is, I've never had a situation in real estate where I had to make a decision on what to do next within the next 5 seconds.
Correct.
Right? Like if an umpire called a pitch outside, a strike that was off the plate, like I got 5 seconds to decide what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
And then I got to do it. Right? So you got to be able to like reframe, refocus, and snap back into like the right mindset. Whereas in real estate, it's like I got 24 hours probably on pretty much any situation that comes up, to figure it out. But on the flip side of that, I've got to deal with that stress for the next 24 hours too, right?
Correct.
So I think there are a lot of similarities in sports. It's a reason why I have a lot of athletes on my team is so many of them not only have that understanding from the stress perspective,
Yep.
but they also have the ability to run their own business usually a little bit more effectively, because playing a sport is kind of like running your own business, right?
Daily discipline.
You're responsible for yourself. Somebody's telling you what to do, maybe a little bit more, whether it be a coach or a trainer or whatever. But you're the one kind of driving the show and doing your thing. So, and it takes a long time to become good at a sport,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes,
and real
it
estate's the same way. And I have so many agents come in and, they see what I'm doing after 10 years. And I'm like, well, you didn't see the 70 hours a week that I was doing back when I was coaching Chanhassen High School.
Correct.
Like, you didn't see any of that stuff. And sure, now maybe it's a little bit easier from a time perspective for me than it was. But it's still hard every single day too, right? So
Yeah.
to grow, you have to do things every single day over and over and over a long period of time to have something happen. So I think that baseball experience really helped me with those kind of key things.
We always talk about the consistent, persistent, and being patient, right? This business is not you don't get to be an AJ flip of the switch, boom,
Right, right.
I'm going to be kicking it out. It takes hard work and discipline to do it. Was it hard giving up baseball? I mean, do you still play
playing?
it? Yeah, do you still play it all
I
now?
might play next year. I played for a little bit when I got done. I got done in June and I was in really good shape. So it was like, I went out and I could, it was like batting practice. And then the next year it wasn't anymore because I didn't train. And I'm like, well, this isn't as fun anymore. And then of course I was coaching and my kids were young and, it's from a time perspective, it's just a difficult sport because it takes so long to play a baseball game, right? And you got to get there early and then people want to hang out after. And, but I think like giving up playing professionally was less difficult than I thought it would be because I kind of had seen other people play too long probably.
Yeah.
And I was going to get sent down. So rather than going back to Fort Myers after I just moved me and my wife to Connecticut, we were like, I'm not going to send you home on a drive by yourself. Like we've done this enough and it's not going to happen. So it was hard. It was harder to find. I'd say to everybody finds their ceiling in anything that they're doing. And athletically, it's really easy to see from an outside perspective, right? People are like, oh, and everyone always wants to tell me that they got hurt and that's why they didn't make it. There's like something, right? I'm like, oh, I didn't get hurt. Like people are like, oh, you must have gotten injured. That's what everybody else says. I blew my knee out or my shoulder or whatever. I'm like, I got to AA and I wasn't good enough anymore.
Right.
I couldn't hit those guys, That's really good. I made it really far, but everyone tells you to go home at some point.
Yeah.
Right? And so I found it was my time to go home. So it was hard, but I got into coaching, which was really fun.
And it was so cool to see your impact with these kids. It was, I know we got a mutual friend, Nate Hansen, and he kind of said the same thing. I mean, he played with the Saints, but got to the point where it's like, boy, these people coming from wherever are unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And, now with these pitchers, 102 and,
Oh, I'd be worse now. I can tell you that. Back then it was like 95, 96 was, high velo. So
we'll get back to normalcy, real estate. But still, so tell us a little bit about how did you transition from baseball coaching? All of a sudden now you decide, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2014 when we came home from Connecticut, and I was trying to get college baseball jobs. Yep. And so I interviewed at a Division II school in Montana and Creighton University, and I got second on both of those jobs. And I realized that since I had no experience, nobody really wanted to hire me. They didn't know how good of a coach I'd be. They just could talk to me and know my baseball experience. That was it, right? I had no track record. And I'd heard about this Chanhassen job through the track coach that was there. It was a really good family friend of ours. He's like, you should throw your hat in the ring. I think they're through a few rounds here, but see how it goes. I was like 26. I'm like, there's no way they're going to hire a 26-year-old to be the head coach of a big school, right?
Yeah.
And interviewed really well, got the job like right away. And kind of in that time period, I was thinking like, this obviously isn't a full-time job, so I need to do something else, right? What would I be good at, So I sat down with a good family friend who was a builder.
Yep.
And another good buddy of my older brother, Josh, who was in real estate. And I said, to both of them, like, what do you think? What should I do? And the guy in real estate was like, well, we just are merging this team together and we're doing this thing, and like, you'd be awesome. And I was like, super cool. And then I met with the builder guy, and he's like, you're going to need so many years of experience to figure out how to do this thing, right? And he's like, you could get into that part of the world at some point if you get into real estate. It's a great avenue for you to get your toes wet on houses and all this sorts of stuff. And it was funny, I saw him like 2 months ago, and I kind of told him everything that was going on, and he's like, well, I guess it kind of happened like we talked about, because now I'm doing the construction aspect of things too, which is really, really fun for me. But yeah, it was pretty much completely random. I was an economics major, so I'm still very interested in markets and things like that. So that's been a really good nuanced kind of niche for me, I think, in real estate.
You've got the personality that gets along with people, right? You're not bam, 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 heavy duty. You just get along with people.
Yeah.
And you're super knowledgeable on the real estate front, but it's also about having some compassion, because it's a big number for a lot of people, and you can't just be this, it's going to be my way or the highway. People don't like that.
Well, and like I said, I'm through baseball, the way I was parented, along with John Anderson at the U of M. Doug Minkiewicz was a coach of mine in Fort Myers. But 14, John at the U, was just huge on psychology. So we had a psychologist on staff at the U, did meetings with him all the time. He himself could have basically done that job. And he was so big on EQ, right? Like, what am I going to teach you that's going to make you successful after you're done playing baseball? And that's what I'm most thankful for from college, really, is just knowing how my thoughts, feelings, actions impact somebody else, right? So reading the room, realizing that what I'm doing is impacting not just myself, but other people as well, which really, it's like Dale Carnegie book, right?
Right.
It's that concept entirely. It's, how do you make people feel good after leaving an interaction with you? You'll be successful doing anything if you can do that. So that's what I've really focused on for most of my real estate career.
Your demeanor, your humility, I think, is one of your greatest assets, because you've been extremely successful, but yet you're okay being in the background. It doesn't have to be the the AJ, here I am, one of these things. I like that, man.
Well, and I don't really crave that, so I like being by myself. I wrote the other day on my anniversary post about my wife, but people, pretty much nobody gives me like energy besides my wife. Like, I'm a total introvert, but some people would say you're an extrovert, you're always with people, whatever. But I'm like my dad, like, he's a pastor, so he'll get done preaching, and I always remember on Sundays he'd come home and have like half a beer, turn the Vikes game on, zonk out for 2 hours, like every single week. And I still remember that, because I'm like, God, everybody would say the same thing about him. They'd be like, you're around people, you're good with people, people like you, and he'd get done and he'd just be like, I'm so tired. And I'm kind of the same way now, right?
Yeah.
So really only spending time with my wife, actually, I could do that forever, but pretty much everybody else, I'm like, I could just kind of be alone now.
It's funny. Jake, who obviously helps us with this production, talk about that a lot. Like being an extrovert, out. Then when you get home, it's just shut down. Mm-hmm. No, it's not hope that we fall asleep during the Vikings game tonight.
I'll try. I usually go to bed about 8:30, so we'll see. We'll see.
Right? It's funny how that happens.
Yeah,
right?
Seriously.
So tell us about your team. Obviously your website, which you'll touch base on. You got a big team in there, man.
Yeah, I think people always ask.
So?
It depends who you're counting, right? Because I have 2 ISAs who are licensed. My transaction coordinator's licensed. My operations guy's licensed. So I think it's 35 at last count. We do have 35 who have sold a home this year on the team. And never expected that whole thing to happen. Truthfully, I got busy enough and started buying Zillow leads, and I was reluctant to do it forever. I did it way back when. They were 3 iterations behind where they are now.
Yeah, correct.
And, back then it was Zillow said that 50% of the leads never got called. So the agents would, swipe the card and then never even reach out to the person that they were, trying to be connected with. And so in that world, the leads weren't that expensive because of that environment.
Yeah, correct.
And I could convert them super easily. And then I'm like, well, I got enough, I was selling, by 2017, I was selling 55, 60 homes a year. and I met a guy door to door selling CenturyLink service, and I said, "You're not making enough money doing what you're doing. You should come work with me." And like 3 months later, he did.
Wow.
And then it kind of all just started going. It was never, a huge intention to.
Intentional.
No, not really. And I had 3 agents when we came to EXP in 2019. And I luckily got within a good group at EXP, linked up with some people that were big and growing, and they really pushed me and encouraged me on it. And now it's grown to be a lot bigger than I thought.
It's super fun. You have an amazing lady who I was in touch with a lot to get you here. Haley, you are an angel, and I appreciate.
She's awesome.
You are an amazing person, and I appreciate your help getting AJ over here tremendously. I'm sorry you weren't here, but you're more than welcome anytime. So what next for the team? I mean, is it keep growing, or are you backing out of production, or head more into new construction?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, in 2020, I sold 69 homes. That was the most I'll ever sell. I think I was like 45 buyers. It was just nonsense. It's a lot of running around.
Not
when you're
from
working
a mortgage person.
Oh man, it's just like driving all the time. And back then, it was like people were all working from home, so I could just literally wake up at 8 a.m. and show houses all day.
Correct.
And I'd be home at 4 o'clock anyways, which was great. Now we're back to a little bit more normalcy and traffic and all that, right? So, but yeah, I am. I'm selling less homes pretty much every year. My big thing I focus on is my percentage of the team sales. So when I first started, it was 90%, right?
Correct.
And now it's down to probably about 10% of the sales of the team this year. So 90% of sales will come from other agents, which is great.
How are you? Because you got a number of people. Cole from your baseball team in Chanhassen, a new guy, young guy. Yep. How do you help people through this market? I mean, including myself, I've been through this market. I have 30 years in this business, but I know what to expect. How do you brace somebody for this business?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. I mean, we told everybody at the beginning of this year, and like I told you before the podcast, we increased headcount just because we knew that would be a way for us to sustain the number of sales that we wanted to do. Because per agent productivity is just, it's going to be impossible to keep it above last year when the sales are down 25-30% across the market, right? So we were just trying to not be as down per agent as the rest of the market and then add some really good people.
Yeah.
But I do think, we told them early on, we said, you're going to have to work twice as hard to do the same number of sales as you did last year. That's just what it's going to have to be. We all get the same amount of time in the day. And if you were working 30 hours a week before, you better plan on doing 50 to 60, or you better plan on making half the money, right?
Correct.
Doing half the deals. Because there's just not as many to go around. Now, that said, we put a ton of things in place, notably through our partnership with Zillow, where from our ISA team in that system, all the way through to I have one full-time, one part-time VAs in the Philippines just doing data. Yeah. So they're tracking these leads from start to finish. They'll tell me today in the last 90 days how many sales agent A, or how many second showing, what percentage of leads are getting to a second showing with agent A, right? So then I can go, it looks like so-and-so slipping on a certain category. And then me and the sales manager can train in real time. So there's a lot of things that we've done. Lead flows increased just because we've done really well in the program. And, just to try to keep people moving. But you're right, it's not easy. I mean, people have to realize that you're going to have to grind it out a lot more than you did when it was 2021 and you just opened the door and there was 45 people in there.
And there you are. Do you offer these people ideas? Of course, open houses, door knocking. We had Melanie Jolson here, who was just Mel, you're a rock star as well.
Yes, she's awesome.
She's my Snoop Dogg fan,
yes,
But
yes.
So, anyways, but do you push people to go in a direction, or do you just say, by your personality, maybe try this? Or
our sales manager sits down with anyone who will take a meeting with him. So he usually gets, of the 35 agents we had, he might get 20, 25 of them to sit down at the beginning of the year and say, what are your goals? What do you want to do this year? And then break that down into categories, right? Like maybe a certain number are going to come from your sphere, certain number are going to come from your open houses or your door knocking or whatever strategies, cancels expireds, and a certain number from the team. And then the team leads is a really easy one because we know the conversion percentages. So we just say, oh, you want to sell 10 homes on the team. Well, we're converting, you converted at 10% last year. So that means you take 100 leads. That's 2 leads a week. So they just take 2 leads a week. You sell 10 houses. That's not very complicated. From a Sphere perspective, it's a little bit harder, right? Because you don't know what your actions are necessarily going to produce.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
But if you get a few years in, or you look back at some case studies, if you will, of like, people say to me, how many Sphere meetings were you doing when you were like just getting started? I said like 5 a week.
Right.
And everyone's like, wow, that's just so many. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what you have to do to get in front of people, for them to actually engage with you about real estate and ask you questions that you can have really meaningful, quality, high value answers for. Then you know that like when they have a real estate need, they're going to call you. Like they don't do that just because you're posting on Facebook all the time.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
They have to talk to you.
We had a lady on last week that said it's so important to take that social media world and bring it into the real world.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to call somebody on their birthday. Don't just put happy anniversary or, do one of these prefab deals. Add some personality doing it, but bring it to a personal level. Call them. It means a big deal. So TK, obviously your partner in crime.
He's my CenturyLink guy. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
He is?
Yeah. Yep.
I'll be
That's
darned.
TK.
We had a great conversation.
He's awesome.
Well, but he talks about his pillars.
Yep.
Right? He's got 3 or 4 pillars, but he said he's got 2 secret ones. So you need to figure out what
The secret ones.
The secret ones.
Oh man, I didn't know he had any secrets. I didn't know he had any secrets.
Those two are jabbing about all that stuff. But no, and it's just so cool to see how you guys have grown this business. So part of what your leader obviously talks about is growing exponentially.
Yep.
That's what he's wanted DXP to do. How do you? Is your goal to get individuals that are producing, or to keep hiring agents? And
both, right? Like we
Yeah.
added an agent 2 weeks ago, has already got 2 sales on our team. She sells, 30, 40 homes a year. She's great, and we're a really great fit for her. Our systems, our process, and everything are really going to be able to help her not only, potentially grow her business, but also not deal with all the nonsense that she was dealing with before, and kind of clear her up to do what she's really good at. But I love getting brand new agents. Like I love getting people who just got their license because they don't have any bad habits.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me is I think a lot of people get into this and they, I do 8 sales a year and I look at them and I can see they're working 20 hours a week and I'm like, you can't, it's very, very hard to change that.
Yeah.
I've realized is productivity is a very difficult thing to change once someone gets set in their ways. And we even have people who come in and they become very productive, and then they get sidetracked with something else they're working on and they get a lot less productive, and then it's a big battle to try to get them going again. Because I'm like, I've seen you do this. I've seen you sell 20 homes a year, and now it seems like you're not focused anymore, right? So we do,
that's part of your task.
Yeah, and we try to get agents from every angle, really. But we've done really well getting brand new people or people in their first year of real estate.
I think that your professionalism, your maturity, your age is so comfortable to bring these new people in. But I think it's also, we had Mike Bernier in here from Realty Group, and he said, ego is a wicked thing. Realtors can bring some paychecks in, right? Mm-hmm. Once you start making some paychecks, it's easy, hey ho, and fall out of your daily disciplines.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's Brent Gove. He says your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah.
He's an EXP guy.
Yeah.
But it's true. Yeah. I think people they think they've already figured it all out. And I still haven't figured it all out.
Right.
And specifically houses, like I talked about, like I've just gotten so interested in that, and I learn 3 new things every single week, whether it be something that's a code related item or the right way to frame that thing or to do that thing, which is what I'm extremely passionate about, so I've gotten more into.
Yeah.
So
it's I keep going back to this baseball and your coaching, and it's so cool to see these ties together, because when I watch these kids, they're all ears to you, and they're all successful, and they all wanted to work their tail off for you, and now you've got this here. And I can just tell you can just tell from your website, which is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
If you guys haven't checked it out, I mean, he's got the team is amazing, the blog's amazing. It's just a simple site to work through.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with the name?
The Advisory?
Yeah.
We threw around a bunch of names. It was actually close to a name that Steve Girton, who was one of my first agents, threw out. And when we were switching to EXP, we were the AJ Pettersen group or something. And
well, that's Tyler's deal. Tyler Miller team. You know,
Yeah.
He said he thought a lot about it. Looked in the mirror, then it came to him.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't fault people. Like, pretty much everybody has the team leader's name in it, right?
Of course.
And I think that's totally fine. But like you said, I was never interested in just growing something for myself. And now it's been cool to see I've got, a leadership group that's helping grow the whole thing with us. And I think they're a lot more committed to that, given that it's not my name.
That's you. I mean, that's what you're all about, is that not that Tyler or TK or any of these guys are me, because they're just a riot. I mean, the videos that Brady does, that Max does, that all these guys come up with, I just love learning from you cats and how you conduct your business, but you all run them differently, right? And that's cool to watch. So if you had, and you already do, 2 or 3, or we've got 900 people here.
Yeah.
Some are brand new. What is a couple pieces of advice you give them?
Oh gosh, real estate is what does I always say? Real estate is super simple. What you do in real estate to be successful is very simple, but it's very hard work. So every new agent that we bring on, I tell them, if you want to make $100,000, for example, you will have to work 50 to 60 hours a week for 3 to 5 years. Like, you just have to do that, and you have to do it every single day, and it's exhausting. But if you're willing to do it, we have what's in place for you to be successful. So I think on my team, that's what I specifically give, the kind of advice I give. But
right.
I mean, you have to go out and meet with your friends. That was like my first day I showed up with Jeff and Lindsay, and I said, what do I do? And they're like, take your wedding invite list, load it into the CRM, and meet with every single one of those people. And I was like, that's it? And they're like, yep. I'm like, cool, I can do that. And I just said, hey, you want to have coffee? Hey, you want to have coffee? Hey, you want to have coffee? And the agents come and they're like, oh, my friends are going to think I'm trying to sell them something, or it's awkward. I'm like, that's the beauty of real estate. I was like, this isn't insurance sales. It's not financial services where I can sell you a life insurance policy just because you're a person.
Right.
I can't sell you a house if you're not trying to buy one.
Correct.
But I can talk to you and see how you're doing and write something down so the next time I meet with you, I remember you're having a baby, or you got a new dog or whatever, right? And so it's just meeting with people and then using all of the people you're meeting with, all the information that you have, and making people feel important. And then now, the beauty for me is I just wake up every day and try to add as much value for the people that I meet with. So anybody I meet with, I'm like, I've got to be important, like do something important for them and ask for nothing, and we'll just see what happens, right? And that's what I do. I mean, like every day, that's what I do.
There's a gentleman at Tristan Amenta from LA.
He's
Dude's
awesome.
a stud, right? I mean, if you guys don't know him, look him up. Amazing. But he says, here's the deal. Pick up your phone and look at all those contacts in your phone. Just dial. I mean, worst case is they've disconnected their phone and you haven't been in contact with them enough. But start to dial. And I think that's very, very important. What else? I mean, does it, people know, trust, to like you. That's just what you're about.
Yeah.
Is that hard to build?
Yeah, I've always said I'm thankful for my parents, just because after all these, I just had lunch with a guy who's a past client of mine. He wanted to talk about potentially tearing his house down and building a new house right on the same spot, kind of thing. And his house makes a lot of sense for it. But anyway, he reached out to me 2 years ago when he's looking for a house, right? And we weren't close friends in high school. Like, we weren't necessarily like in the same friend groups or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I look back and I'm like, man, I must have been a nice person for someone like that to call me, right? Like, I'm not that active on social media. I hadn't talked to the guy in probably a decade.
Yeah.
And he picked me to help him with his house purchase. And so it is hard if you didn't grow up like that, or you're not in an area where you grew up and you have a sphere like that, it's difficult, and you have to go out and find your own business that way, right? Whether that's buying your own leads, finding a team that has leads, doing open houses, doing the like ground marketing, basically.
Yes, yep. Boots on the
Finding
ground.
finding lenders that you guys can pass business back and forth. Like all those things have to happen.
Yes.
But it all happens a lot faster if you're fortunate, like I was, where I had 25 friends reach out my first year in real estate to buy a house.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew people that were also, by the way, 27 years old, and they're about to buy their first house, right? So it was like a really, really good time for me to get into it.
So Cole is graduated 4 years ago?
2015.
Yeah, 2015. It's like, geez, how about that?
Yeah,
8
he's
years ago,
26,
whatever. But that's a perfect age because his group is buying homes.
They're
now.
looking. Exactly.
And so it's a matter of staying top of mind.
And in this market, as I've been telling people, I'm like, I'm not the guy who says, it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell, like all these people marketing out there. But I think I think a lot of people have gotten snake bitten in this industry this year because they weren't diversified enough with the pillars of business,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
They just helped people just like them all the time. So they helped all the first time buyers. And that's how a lot of my business happened. It just spidered out a lot wider than what a lot of people get. Now, and all they do now is they go, okay, I'm just going to help move up buyers, right? I help them sell and then I help them buy their nice final home, right? Well, not a lot of people are doing that right now because to sell your $600,000 home and buy a $900,000 home in the same school district, it doesn't make any sense.
The
like
price of fun is
it's just dumb, right? Like I tell people that, like everybody comes to me now has to do something,
Correct.
right? First time buyers,
Yep.
it's not a bad time to be a first time buyer in my opinion, right? If you can afford the payment, you can lock in what's happening. Who knows what the interest rates are going to
Correct.
do, right? But to that point, if you're 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, that's what your network is doing. And the stigma in the media is it's a terrible time, rates are bad, right? So you've got to have that voice and be able to add that value for people. And you don't have to sell them anything, but if they say, well, is it a good time to buy a house right now? It's like, well, it really depends on the situation. But first time buyers are seeing less competition than they've seen in 7 years.
And they've come out with some tremendous deals. But, one of the things, AJ, and I know you deal with this, and I know all these agents out here deal with it. When I go up to talk to somebody and I say I'm in the mortgage business, ooh, gosh, it's a tough time.
Yeah.
Well, it's all relative, right? How do you become the trusted advisor and say it's all about how comfortable you are with payments? It's not negative. It's not bad. Things are busy. There are homes selling. People are getting divorced. All this stuff is happening. You got to be careful of buying into the experts.
Well, and everybody said in 2020, wow, the market's so hot, it must be just such a great time to be in real estate. I'm like, this is the most stressful time that I've ever experienced. Like,
Right.
we walk in and then the listing agent calls me and says, you have 15 minutes to submit an offer and we have 2 cash offers, 20% over the list price. It's like, whoa. And people just don't, like, they weren't even ready for that. It's like a whirlwind. And so I don't think there's ever is it harder to get business now? Absolutely. I mean, there's
Yeah,
4 million sales in the United States this year. It was 7 million like 2 years ago, I think. So across the country, I mean, it's really, really bad. But I think if you constantly get up and try and, like, I go on CNBC 3 times a day. I'm looking at the 10-year treasury yield the whole day.
Oh, God.
I am. I'm just tracking it, right? I'm like, where is it going? Oh, it went over 5. Now it's retreated today quite a bit. So it's just understanding that you have to become more knowledgeable every day so that when you run into somebody and they say, how's the market, that you have an answer. And then every team meeting, literally every team meeting, I say, here's your 1-sentence line for when someone asks you, how's the market this week, right? Tell them this one thing. And they will think that you're brilliant because you're better than Google.
Right.
Right.
Better than Google.
Better than Google. That's one of my lines. Yeah.
Are you saying you're Google?
No. I'm trying to be better than Google. The big thing, though, I mean, like, when you can, this is like why we pitch home buyer meetings so much, right? Because you can't go on Google and be like, what are the steps to buying a house?
Correct.
It's different in every state. And the nuance of each part of the process is always different. So there's so much value to be added in those kinds of conversations.
Do you see a similarity with the psychology of buying? Because you've got a lot of buyers out there that are not getting the homes because even though obviously there's fewer homes to be buying, but it's still competitive. I mean, how do you handle the psychology of somebody not getting their third or fourth home? I mean, is it your fault? Is it their fault?
It's true. I mean, the stuff that we train on, typically our agents and their buyers are not losing too many times in a row. I mean, sure, back in 2020 when that was going on, it's like you can't control for some ridiculous offers coming in.
Correct.
And we never were a team that said, "Oh, we should just skip the inspection." You know, like we were always like, "No, that's not a great liability type of piece of advice." So let's find unique ways to get around that. But I think the collaborative aspect that we've got in our crew has really helped, because people say these guys have lost twice in a row, and now they're making their third offer, and it's in competition again. Like, what do we do? You know, and it's like, here's the conversation you have with a listing agent. Here's what the lender's supposed to do. Here's what the offer submission should look like. You know, and if they follow all the steps, eventually, if they are giving good advice on other terms, like they usually end up making something work.
It's amazing in my world, and I've always done it, where you're calling a listing agent, you're promoting the buyers, you're promoting you, but that's just what you got to do to help facilitate a very tough deal. I mean, to win deals. On
listings, it's like, gal, sometimes they just submit an Authentisign link, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even hear from you. Who are you? And did you see the house?
Right.
You know, like it doesn't give you as much confidence when someone's not super buttoned up. But again, that's our industry, right? Like
correct.
90 hours to get into real estate. So there's not like a big barrier to entry. So if people don't know the professional right way about going about things, it's really hard for them. And by the way, it's also easier for all of us to actually do it the right way, you know?
Yeah. Well, AJ, you're a, dude, I've known you for a while. I've respected the hell out of you for a long time. To see how successful you've been here is so cool to see. So
Thank you.
Appreciate you being on here as the Realtor of the Week.
Yeah.
And I look forward to connecting more. Obviously, the partnership, we just keep getting all you guys on. And it becomes very obvious why people know you, trust you, and like you, brother. So
well, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You got it, my friend. Thank you very much, everybody. So without you guys, Realtor Connect is not Realtor Connect. We appreciate you. Tell your friends, tell your teammates, tell your realtors to come and join the group. It's a private group. But we also have Instagram, all one word, Realtor of the Week. And then we do a YouTube channel where we've got Realtor of the Week, all separate words. Again, follow, like. You get brains like this to learn from, and it's very solid. So thank you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.